Yeah, hey, yeah, time, hey, in the ring, yeah, downtime in the ring, yeah, you know we get it on. Downtime's in the ring, we gon' hustle till it's gone. Downtime in the ring, yeah, you know we get it on. Downtime in the ring, yeah, we got it till it's gone. Downtime in the ring, yeah, you know we get it on. Downtime in the ring, yeah, we hustle till it's gone.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Downtime in the Ring. Now, this week is going to be very interesting. Hopefully, it gives us a lot of wisdom. Hopefully, we get something this week. We try to improve ourselves because we are blessed to have Coach Josh Gerry on this week.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Pleasure's all mine, by the way. Don't forget that.
Thank you. Thank you. So before we discuss anything,
okay,
can I just talk about your background?
Yeah. That could fill probably an 83 weeks podcast of content. Is there anything specific that you want to know, or do you want like the short, down and dirty, like Cliff Notes version?
It is. I just want to give it a compliment that it is the most beautiful background we've had since having guests.
You mean my literal background?
Yes, your literal background.
Yes. It is my people call it my coach's corner. It's just kind of been a hodgepodge of stuff that just kind of collected over the years, gifts from students, just random finds at thrift stores and things of that nature. Anybody that like I'm highly in favor of currently on television, or even friends of mine, if they've got an action figure or whatever, I've got them kind of nestled back there. I actually did a YouTube video a couple weeks ago because I got tired of people saying, hey, can you give me a tour? And so I actually went through like each piece and just kind of touched on each one. But yeah, it's kind of one of those every week when I do a video, I try to like move stuff around and see if people notice. So nobody's noticed yet. Not yet anyway.
I love it so much. I mean, I have like my small collection of autographs and like wrestling figures, but that is the goal. That is what I want to get.
And it extends probably like 5 feet above my head too. Like you only get so much of it right here.
And I know you do have some Star Wars off to the side too.
Man, so this is the home office. This is the coach's corner, right? And then I have a Star Wars section. I've got a Marvel section, and then I've got books upon books and all the like knick-knacky pop culture-y like things. Like it's crazy. My wife will see something, she'll be like, I thought you would like this. And I'm like,
oh, nice.
There's a spot for it, So I got a Thanos glove sitting right there. Like it's just all kinds of stuff. Yeah, it's crazy.
That's so cool, man. That's so cool. Okay, I mean, this is a wrestling podcast, but we're not predominantly wrestling. We love to talk about whatever you love to talk about. So let's get into the actual learning about you before I just mark out completely with all your toys.
Okay.
Give us a little bit about your background. I see that you have AML. Let us know where you coach.
The AML. AML is where I've kind of been plying my trade for the last, in May, it'll be 6 years. I've had a real good relationship with Tracy Myers and Brian Hawks, who also do the Wrestle Cave convention. I've had a real good relationship with them for over 10 years. And there was an opening, and they hit me up, and I've been a part of them ever since. I always try to make myself valuable. If I'm not physically on camera, I'm behind camera. I'm at the training center. I'm doing whatever. I'm a big fan of telling students, like, if you want to make it in this industry, you have to find a way to make yourself valuable. And then that way you'll always have a job. And so, I've been lucky to be with probably one of the best independent promotions. That is a direct quote from Gabe Sapolsky, by the way, but one of the best independent promotions in the country. I've been blessed because I've been able to make myself valuable. So.
Yeah, and even the knowledge that you put out online through your Facebook, Twitter. I watched a couple of your YouTube videos. Like, it's really interesting stuff. There's stuff that, like, I'm not in, like, training to become a pro wrestler. My co-host is, for the most part. And I'm just like, dang, those are some crazy insights. For example, like how you talk about wiping down your shoes before you enter the ring and stuff.
Yeah.
Your like entrance music can be a detriment, but also a great thing. And like it's crazy how in depth and how short and concise it is in your wisdom. And
well, and what's funny about it is I've had people that make a lot more money in wrestling than I do, that have been on TV a lot more than I have, like hit me up and they're like, dude, like, why are you giving that stuff away for free? And I'm like, Netflix does it. Disney Plus does it. Yep. Spectrum and Comcast do it, right? It's free trials, right? It's just enough for you to know that I know what I'm talking about. So then now when it's like, hey, you get to pay for 4 hours of being with me, or you come train at the school that I'm at, or you come to a seminar or a camp, like you're like, okay, I'm going to get something from this. You know, I don't give away the farm, right? I give just enough that where you can be like, man, that was good piece of content. I want more, right? It's just like the drug dealer on the corner. Your first little taste is free.
Yeah. No, I went down an entire rabbit hole with your YouTube videos. So like, especially with how you interpret a baby face, the match being the Babyface's movie. Yeah, and stuff like that. And then using the Star Wars references, I
will go ahead and tell you, I can't remember if I referenced it in the video, but that is I'll go ahead and tell you, I stole that from Mike Quackenbush. That was one of the things that Mike Quackenbush and I kind of like met and kind of meshed together. He's a big Star Wars nerd too, and so that's in a chapter of one of his books. I've had conversations with him about it, and I'm like, dude, I got to take that. And he said, please. So. I definitely got to give a nod to him because he's another one of those that, you know, I enjoy talking to and just, you know, talking shop. Right.
Yeah.
So what made you decide to go from, you know, having your career as a professional wrestler to then just being a coach and sticking out being a coach this long?
So it's funny because one of my earliest videos, I go back and I look at it and I'm like, oh, I had no idea what production was. But I kind of tell my story, right? So I started training to be a professional wrestler in 1999. You know, it was going to be WWE. I was going to do all this stuff. We got to about 2005, 2006, and I didn't have that coach in the corner like I am with students now, or kind of saying, hey, slow down, less is more. You don't need to take the unnecessary risks, you know, maximize your time, all that good stuff. And so I was going hard charging, like taking insane bumps in front of 15 people, you know, training 6 days a week. Like I was never going to get old. And, you know, it started catching up to me. I took a little bit of time off, got married, had kids, got divorced, got remarried, got divorced again. But, you know, through that, I never really totally got away from wrestling. And so about 2010, I got pulled back in with some guys that I wrestled with. They were like, hey, we want to run this promotion. We want your knowledge, your expertise. And so I was like running sound, booking the matches, you know, doing all the stuff backstage. I was learning how to advertise, learning how to market, do all that stuff. And then I got to a point where it was like, I don't know, maybe 2014, 2015. And I met Brutal Bob Evans, which if you talk to anybody in wrestling, and pretty much everybody in wrestling has good things to say about Bob. But he was like, hey, man, why don't you take what you're doing and just tick it up a couple notches? And I was like, never thought of it that way. And we kind of bounced off some ideas. And then that's where Coach Josh was born. And it's just kind of taken on this, its life of its own. And it's allowed me to actually do some pretty cool stuff in wrestling that I probably wouldn't have been able to do if I wouldn't have kind of had that, hey, go get him, sucker, you know, from him. So I attribute a lot of what I'm doing currently and have been doing for the last like 8 or 9 years to him. And, you know, of course he's humble and he'll be like, oh, no, you did it on your own, which, I mean, I did do the grunt work, but it was the spark and the push from him. So that's kind of what did it. You know, I couldn't do it physically in ring, and I tried a couple times where I would like get students booked and I would wrestle under a mask. So I knew they were working with somebody that they knew what was going on and just didn't get thrown in there with any yoo-hoo. And it started coming back. You know, I got hip issues, sciatic. I got some neuropathy. I got some numbness in some body parts and stuff. And it was like, it's not worth the risk anymore. So I'll do it from the sidelines and do everything backstage, right? Do everything for the most part behind the scenes, which that didn't actually stick because then I started doing commentary and interviewing and all that stuff. So I can't totally get away from the limelight, but in-ring competitor, I might have a match or two left, but they're probably going to have maybe like one bump and it'll be the finish. And we joke about that all the time. Coach has got one more match in him, and I'm like, oh, so.
Okay. See, I like that. I like that at least, like, okay, yeah. I got one I got 5 good minutes left in me. I don't know how I'm going to stretch them out.
Yeah.
But I got 5 minutes left.
Yeah, we have to find the right story, right? And plant the seeds and sell some tickets and make it worthwhile,
So, out of your students, is there anybody that we've seen shine on the indies that you have trained? And I'm pretty sure there's probably going to be a good amount.
Yeah, there's that question gets asked a lot, and unfortunately it's not and no detriment to any coach or any student ever. It's an unfair question just simply because of the law of averages, right? Like, it's the same thing with being an actor in Hollywood. Your chances of being there and being famous and getting rich off of it are very slim. But there have been a couple that I've had my hand in. Probably straight off the top of my head, you guys are a little bit more west than I am, but anybody along the East Coast was familiar with the Scrapyard Dog. He was 20-plus year independent, hardcore kind of deathmatch guy. Tragically passed away a little over a year ago. People I didn't even know that would know him. They're like, "Oh yeah, I know Scrap," and so he kept my lineage on. He would put me over to anybody that would listen, and he was kind of one of my first projects, so to speak. I mean, I had no business training people back in the day, but he'll attribute a lot of his success to me. Maddie Max, she's a female talent. She had a couple squash matches on Raw, AEW. Currently Sandy Shores in WoW. She was one of mine back from about 2015, 2016. There have been a couple indie guys that have come and gone. We've got a couple right now out of the AML Pro Wrestling Training Center that are lighting it up. Jesse Alexander Carter, JAC, Jack, Clara. There's a couple that are kind of making waves out of AML, and then there's some that if you look at an independent proster in the area, I can pretty much say, hey, he came out of my school, or hey, he attended a seminar of mine, or hey, I guest coached at his school, or whatever. So there are a lot of kids that I've had an influence on, but I wouldn't claim them. You know what I mean? Like, they didn't spend 6 straight months with me. You know what I mean? But there's a lot of talents that have been in enhancement matches in AEW and stuff like that I'll tune in and I'll go, oh, I remember when they couldn't even take a bump, kind of thing. But those are probably some of the more notable ones that usually get brought up when that conversation happens.
Oh, I see.
So the funny part about it is, for most podcasts, they'll be like, oh my God, who have you gotten that's famous? This podcast, when every name you just said, is probably going to get an email to come on this show to get their flowers, to get their opportunity.
I'm glad you say that, because I tell them you've got to get comfortable doing media as well, right? Yes. Podcasts, interviews, radio, whatever the case may be. You got to get comfortable talking in front of a camera, talking in front of people, whatever the case may be, because, I mean, there have been some pretty good professional wrestlers throughout the history that couldn't talk, but the ones that could, they do a lot better.
Yeah, and you mentioned that, like, you even mentioned in posts and stuff saying that you have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Just like you had pointed out in your background, you got involved with the lighting and not just setting up the ring, not just the commentary, not just the behind the scenes aspect. You had your hand in all of it, and that's only going to help you bring in more opportunity to do something further down the line. And so that's great advice for anyone, even for us. When we first started this, we didn't have so much of an environment where it's like, oh yeah, pro wrestling, that's going to be kind of the go-to dream, and so you had those doubters, but like it made me uncomfortable per se personally, but over time, being on camera, being in multiple different projects, even to now where I'm working at local television at a level now for being that uncomfortable. In the uncomfortable positions, I'm growing and learning those things, and so in context to wrestling, that's the same thing, and I absolutely love that.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, I tell one of my isms, my students call them coach isms, is there's two places in life that are the most uncomfortable: in your comfort zone and outside your comfort zone. But guess what? You only grow in one of them, right? So good for you, man. Taking what you've learned self-taught and being able to transition it into other things. That's awesome. That's cool, man.
Yeah.
So for things like wrestling where you have to maintain these relationships, and I mean, even going and sending a, keeping up with the promoter and sending a text every once in a while, are those good habits to have where you're like, okay, once a week I'm going to send out the same email to, a promotion that hasn't noticed me? Because I see it all the time now that I am starting to get into professional wrestling, where I want to compete, where I see other wrestlers that we want to have on,
right?
And some of them will complain. Not going to say any names, but some of them will complain and say, well, y'all forgot about me, so I'm going to make y'all regret it. Instead of being like, okay, they forgot about me now, but how about in 2 weeks when I send an email again or a text message? Because I'm very much like, I will still keep up with all of our guests, which has turned into a hassle. But we had Myron Reed on one week, and he told me that this is one of the smartest things I could do because I'm making relationships with you guys. But I see a lot of people that don't want to do that. And why do you think that is?
I see a lot of students, they'll ask me, they're very introverted. They're not very outgoing. Like, how do I reach out to people? How do I message this promotion? How do I whatever? And I always tell them, I'm like, man, most of the influential people that I've met in professional wrestling, I started off by walking up to them and saying, hi, my name is Josh, right? Like that start there, right? You have to start in order to be great.
Yes.
So it can be tough. It can be difficult. When I started, you networked, you walked half naked up to another half naked man and was like, hey, man, can I have your phone number? So it was a little more awkward back in the day, right? But with social media, you've got all the different platforms, Facebook Messenger, Twitter direct message, TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn, Snapchat. You've got all these different ways to communicate. Not everybody communicates the same way. So like, you can try the different avenues. Like, dude, I'm 24 years in and I'm still sending out emails and messages to guys like, hey, I'd like to come up there, or hey, I'd like to do this, or, whatever. And not just the independent groups, but, the people that are on TV as well, because, that's where I would like to go. So if you're just starting out, you've got to do it as well. Go to an event you're not booked on. Find out who the promoter is. Find out who the booker is. Talk to everybody, and not just talk to the promoter and the booker. Talk to the main event. Talk to the mid card. Talk to the curtain jerker. Talk to the ring crew. Like, find out what they're doing in wrestling, what they like, because they may be like, oh, next weekend I'm in so-and-so. You want to ride with me? Heck yeah, dude. So it's like, you build up, and here I'm going to date myself. You build your Rolodex, right? You start to, do I know somebody in Lubbock, Texas? I do, right? So I need a contact in Houston. Okay, that's probably going to be my first, or somebody in New Orleans, right? I'm going to try and bridge the gap. Talk to people, look, and Facebook has that great feature, mutual friends, right?
Yeah.
Who do I have that is a friend of mine that I want them to be my, so like, a lot of that is even more work than actually learning how to wrestle and the counters and the reversals and all that stuff. And can be a heartache, which I think is the other reason people don't do it, because people don't like rejection. They don't like the word no. And I always tell people, no is spelled N-O. You know what it stands for? Next opportunity. Don't look at it as a rejection. Just say, it's not right now. Go on. Continue on. If you send out 5 emails and nobody responds, crap, right? You send out 50 and 1 responds, better than 0, right? Yeah. And then it gives you somebody to follow up with. And it's just, I hate to say this, but it's a game, right? And you've got to be able to play the game and understand the rules and the players and how to do it right. Because sometimes you can paint yourself into a corner and kind of get blacklisted and not even know you did anything wrong. But nothing's forever in wrestling. Never say never. So I'll never book you, you POS, and 10 years later you're their champion. It's like,
Yep.
I don't take a lot of stuff personal in wrestling.
And see, it was like a few weeks ago, I was at that point where I was burned out of, you know, I love talking to people. I love meeting new people. I love reaching out. As you can tell, I reached out to you, and I was sitting in my office and I was like, man, this is a lot. And my partner, she comes up to me and she goes, look at what you get to do, though. Look at the people that you've gotten to meet who have gotten to work at these amazing promotions. And we have a connection with AEW and we're doing all of this. And she goes, think of the average fan. They will never reach this. They'll never get to this point because they're afraid. And I'm like, all right, cool. And I get a smile on my face and I'm like, you know what? It's really not that bad. And like I said, you're going to get a happy 4th of July text and you'll get all of that for a long time, because now you're part of this list where I just send it to everybody because I want you guys to know I still keep y'all in my mind. And, you know, there may be a part 2 here in like 6 months, a year or something where we're like, all right, coach, how are you doing?
Well, and another thing about that is I'll tell students often, you know, you want to, you know, I don't want to give away all the secrets, but you want to post on social media often. And people are like, oh, well, that can be tiring. You know, to come up with fresh content and da-da-da. And I was like, well, it doesn't always have to be fresh content. You can share things, you can comment on things or whatever. But what that does is it keeps your name there. It keeps your name in people's news feeds, and out of sight, out of mind, right? They don't see your name, you don't exist. And so same thing, you know, I've got contacts in my phone. I'm not going to name drop, but, you know, influential people that I really, one, they're really awesome people and I like hanging out and talking with them. But then 2, they're also influential people that if I wanted to cash in those chips, I could be like, hey, brother, you know, but like every 3 or 4 months, hey, man, just thinking about you, dude. I see what you're doing. Keep it up. Whatever, right? Don't even mention, hey, can I get a job? But every once in a while, you know, I'll send that message and be like, you know, hey, if there's an open for a whatever, winky face emoji, you know, like just to let them, you know, the interest is still there. But I'm not doing it like I'll see talents. Like I don't promote or book anything on an official level, right? I have a little bit of say in AML and WrestleCade, but it's more of kind of like a, hey, you know, somebody approached me with this idea and I think it might be doable. You know, if it's a shitty idea, I don't pass it on, right? But like I don't promote shows that I personally am putting on. I don't book like I'll book our student shows. But that's not, you know, if you're not a student, you're not going to be on the show. So, but I still have people hit me up and be like, hey man, you got any openings, you know, 6 months from now? Openings for what? Like I don't do anything. And it's the same people, like same response as it was 6 months ago, man. Still not doing anything, you know? So I mean, I can understand from a promoter standpoint. Like I said, I've been friends with Tracy and Brian for a while, one of the best promotions in the industry or in the country. And then also doing WrestleCade. Dude, I've seen their inbox. They scroll for days and not hit the same person twice. So you can get lost in the shuffle and people get upset about it and, you know, huff and puff. And I see the passive aggressive posts on Facebook, you know, like, oh, you know, you're not worth my time, or, you know, screw that guy. And stop putting your energy into that stuff, man. Just keep the contacts, reach out every once in a while. Hey, I'm still alive. You know, good things happen. Throw good karma into the pool, man. Throw good karma.
Yeah, and we've actually, as of recently, we did reach out to someone from England, and he responded to us, and so we weren't even expecting a response so like punctual, you know, like almost literally the next day. Nice. And he just said, unfortunately, we will decline, but I wish you best of luck in your content creation and stuff. And it's just and then I responded in turn, is like, hey, thank you for the response. That's the little things, you know. Unfortunately, yes, it is a no, but I'm so grateful that you took the time to respond. It
takes the question out. I don't have to sit there and wonder, right? Am I lost in an inbox somewhere? Like, you read it, you understood it, you responded. Okay, let's move on, right?
Yeah. So
even though, you know, you're asleep at 3 a.m. and somebody texts you, hey, he responded.
Yeah.
And you're like, great, dude. I'm half awake right now.
Yeah, that's right, man. My electronic devices silent. Like somebody's dying and they're trying to get a hold of me. I won't know it until I get up in the morning. But I tell people all the time, I'm like, look, I will respond to you within 24 hours. I respond to everybody that messages me. Sometimes they get lost in the shuffle, like AML show day. You message me, you're probably not going to hear from me probably till Monday or Tuesday. It's just how it is. WrestleCade weekend, forget about it. But I hate I didn't get back to that person. That's what I did to you. Like, I was like, yeah, I'll get back with you. And then I was like 4 days later, I went, oh man, I didn't respond back to him. And I went and I found it and I was like, hey, didn't forget about you. That's a part of it. And that's a part of that professional manner. I saw it to promoters, bookers, talent agents, and even television, people that are trying to book people for security spots or whatever. They're like, they don't respond. You'll send them a message and it's like crickets. And I just, it's one of those things I just kind of shake my head, and I could be the angry old man yelling at clouds, but, I don't know if it's a generational thing or if it's a regional thing or what, but, you just have people where they're just like, they expect it to come to them. And, even when it does, they're like, oh, I'll get to it, or, oh, I'll get to it, or, oh, I forgot. And, and it's just like, man, if this is what you want to do, like, I'd be hitting the response and getting up. Like, I'll admit I was a little lax in 2023. Kind of took my foot off the social media gas a little bit compared to what I was doing. And then WrestleCade season came around, and I kind of got to looking at everything and everybody I was running into, and hey, looking forward to seeing you next weekend and all that stuff. And I was like, crap. And it, I kind of had to slap some water on the face and like, all right, let's get back to it, sharing posters and events and all that stuff. So, but it can be tiring. So, I mean, I get that, but at the same time, like, it's uncomfortable. It's something that you've got to do. Everybody else is doing it. So, you've got to do something to raise above that noise. So, good on you guys for doing that. Cause the podcast interview content, environment can be tough. Right, because you'll run into talents where they're like, "Yeah, I'll do your podcast, $500." Thanks, but no thanks. Appreciate you. Go on to the next one. Like, and then I've seen some where they get sent to me, and they're like, "Hey, coach, can you check this out and tell me what you think?" And it's 45 minutes, and it's monotone like this, and there's no excitement. And anyway, let's do it. And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, 5 minutes into this, and I'm about ready to tear my hair out." So, kudos to keep going with it. You know what I mean?
Yes,
that's why I sent you the reference. That's why I sent you our channel, because I was like, everybody's probably asked him to be on a podcast.
I've had a handful over the years. Most people that I know through wrestling, because most of the time you want the people on screen, right? The rising stars, the legends, But so it's pretty cool when you get asked. I'll admit, it kind of lights a little fire where it's like, old man still got it.
Yeah, we had a former guest kind of tell us, like, reach out to not just wrestlers, reach out to students, reach out to coaches, referees, the cameraman, the guy who rings the bell, and with this podcast, we try and set that precedent. Like, we'll invite anyone if you're within that business and you have something to contribute within your experiences that that we can learn from, all for it.
Yeah. And then like you said previously, the people that I've name dropped, you're like, well, I'm going to be reaching out to them. Yeah, because then now you get to link that. Yes. This guest mentioned this guest, who mentioned this guest, and then you can reference back, and so it kind of becomes its own little web. So.
It's always interesting too, when you get into this, when you get into like content creation, because everybody instantly thinks that it's going to be the instant gold mine, that everybody's entertaining. And, us watching wrestling forever, me getting to step behind the curtain and realize you may personally be an entertainer to like your friends, but what about that random group of like 15 people in Wichita County who are just like, I don't like this guy. And so when I sat down with my partner and I was like, we're going to create this show, this was before I pitched it to Chris. When I was going to try and do solo interviews, my goal was, I'm going to do 50 episodes only, and I want to find 50 friends in 50 states that I can talk to about wrestling.
Okay.
And that's already been gone. Like, that's already been gone because we find more and more people. And every time we're like, okay, so now if we go to WrestleCade one year, I would love to get a picture with you. I would love to shake your hand and be like, all right, cool. This is awesome. Like
I will warn you, it is a more difficult task than you think.
Oh, I bet. Oh, 100%.
You'll see me and you'll be like, hang on, I want to talk to. Well, I was going to talk to him.
You know what? I mean, it's WrestleCade. We'll find something to fill until we can actually go see you. But like getting this opportunity, and I try pushing it to, you know, the people that I train with, that this is a huge part. You can be great in the ring. You can be fantastic. But if nobody knows who you are, and yeah, that's how the business was back in the day, but they also had to travel to different territories and do different tours. People still need to know who you are. And if you're great in the ring, but you can't cut a promo, you can't talk, you can't be uncomfortable, are they just going to use you for just the big scary or the quiet assassin, or, you know, like the high flyer? Are they just going to use you for that? You got to learn how to talk. You got to be okay with talking and okay with the rejection.
Yeah. I mentioned to a couple of our students last weekend a segment on NXT, Braun Breaker and Baron Corbin. So biggest, baddest, meanest dudes currently on the roster, but they're having to do that odd couple tag team. And they had a backstage segment with Kelly Kincaid that was pretty darn entertaining. And it was humorous. And it was really showing you their personality. So it's not just this scripted character. Okay, here's the actual person. Can you be entertaining while at the same time maintaining this persona? And I think they nailed it. And I think it definitely increased their stock within that company. And it just goes to show that sometimes you kind of have to let the talent show you what they can do, but also at the same time, you have to be able to kind of pull that yoke back sometimes, because sometimes they'll go a little wild. I'll see that a lot in training where it's like, all right, I want you to see you guys. Okay, we're going to run this sequence. We're going to run this spot. And I want you guys to do it like you're in front of 10,000 people. Sell, characterization, story, emotion, all that stuff. Let me do it. And then by the end of it, it looks like a Three Stooges segment because they're just razzing each other and doing one-liners and stuff. And I'm like, I'm not eating what you're feeding me. Like, I'm not believing it. You know, you're getting your arm wrenched out of the socket and you're talking about his breath. Like, so there definitely is a fine line, and it can be difficult. Like you said, 15 people in BFE, Kansas who don't know who you are, and you got to get them to hate you like that. Like, not as easy as it seems.
And people don't really like pay attention. Like with the top guy in Roman Reigns, he went from suffering succotash to acknowledge me, and that character shift, you know. So yeah, it's there's no better example than that currently in the modern era, and so I think
like, and I could be wrong, you are the coach, but I think that every wrestler needs to have just that little bit of humility or that comedy. I mean, we've seen Undertaker break character before. We've seen, you know, Sammy try to break the bloodline, which was hilarious, except for he couldn't do it to Solo. But I think that that's what needs to happen, no matter if you are ripping somebody apart or you're competing at like GCW. I mean, those guys do it the best.
Yeah,
they're scary, but yet they still have the comedy aspect. So
yeah. I was always, when I was healed about probably 80-90% of my career, and I had no problem. Man, make fun of me. I'll be the butt of the joke. Hell yeah. If it gets you over, gets the matches over, and gets me paid, hell yeah, I'll be the butt of a joke. You know, I would always come up with things that made me look like an idiot. But in the end, you know, I got to do some ass kicking along the way too, right? As long as it makes sense. And then after I'd been doing it for a while, I got bored, and I would try to humor myself in the middle of the match. So here's a little story. My neck of the woods, North Carolina, Ivan Koloff he lived around here. And you couldn't go to an independent event in the 90s or the 2000s without running into Uncle That dude was phenomenal. And what I mean by that, like you see his stuff in Crockett and NWA and all that stuff or whatever, but like he would tell jokes while he wrestled. And I don't mean like, why did the chicken cross the road to get to the other side? No. A Jew, a rabbi, and an Irishman walk into a bar. The Jew goes up and buys a beer. The rabbi goes and talks to like these long, drawn-out, story-like jokes in the match. Fans had no clue. I'm sitting here in a freaking arm bar, and he's right here telling me this joke, and I'm doing everything in my power not to laugh because it's amazing. But I still have like, oh, this hurts. Like, oh my, amazing. And so I was like, I want to do that. And so I would try to do that with people and try to, alleviate the, the nerves and stuff that a lot of the younger guys felt. But, I mean, it's definitely an art form to get a crowd to stand up and a crowd to sit down just solely based on what you're doing. I had the privilege of working with Ring of Honor quite a bit in 2017, 2018. So we're talking about Bullet Club era. Yeah. And to watch some of those guys, most notably the Young Bucks, they're very polarizing, right? People love them, people hate them. There's usually not any middle. But to watch them sit there and put a match together based on what the crowd is going to chant, and then whatever, like there's no way, and then actually watch it happen exactly like they thought it would, and the crowd chant what they said what they were going to chant when they said they were going to chant it. Blew my mind, right? Like you've got people that are that good, that understand their crowd, understand the market so well that they can do that. And it's just like playing a violin. And it's just like, I try to impart that type of knowledge on everybody I get a hold of, but some people just, they can't learn geometry because they can't get past basic arithmetic. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so everybody learns at their own pace. And so I always say my job as a coach is to keep teaching you the lesson until you're ready to learn it. You know what I'm saying? And, but yeah, the performance aspect of it, timing, some of it can be taught, but some people just have it, I can just watch people and be like, that dude gets it. Or, oh, that young lady, she gets it, So, but that's the beauty of what I do. I get to watch them, like the light bulb moment is what I call it, when they like finally figure something out. There's probably 3 or 4 big times in professional wrestling while you're training where like I'm sitting here explaining to you. So you go here and you do this and then you do, and then you wait, pause, and they're like, yeah, yeah. They're hearing and understanding the words that I'm saying, but they're not understanding the concept or the theory, right? Yeah. And they think they are, but they're not. And they'll be doing something totally unrelated. And then all of a sudden it'll just be like a Looney Tunes, ding, the light bulb goes off and they're like, oh my gosh. I get it. There's several things in wrestling that happens. And so I love watching that happen because like I'll sit there and be like, man, do it again, but it needs more intensity. And they're like I'm putting as much intensity in I can as I can. Well, if I'm telling you it needs more, then you're not. Or slow down. Love that one. They're like, how can I slow? If you think you're going slow more. And they're like, ugh. And I keep giving them that feedback and keep giving them that feedback. And then when I don't, and they realize it, oh, that's great. And that's my WrestleMania moment as far as being a coach, like watching that talent like get it and it's snap into place, and then you kind of like go off to high school now, and ways,
awesome. That's awesome.
So I can't even ask like what's the most fulfilling part because you just answered it. But what would you bestow upon any young wrestlers that are watching currently? What is something where you don't have to give the full seminar, but what is the best little piece of advice you could say to us right now?
My biggest thing is you got to trust the process. You can't expect to run before you learn how to walk. You can't expect to walk before you learn how to crawl. Like you've got to have a good solid foundation, get the basics, get it figured out. Everybody wants to come in with these creator wrestler ideas. They created their wrestler on 2K and that's what they want to throw out to the audience. And 9 times out of 10, that's crap. It's not going to work. Like, let's tweak it. I'm not totally shooting your idea down, but understand I've been doing this for a while and I've seen stuff that works and I see stuff that doesn't. And they want to do the 450s off the top rope to the floor, through a table, kick out at 1, right? Like, slow down. You know, just be somebody that wrestles good first, and then that other stuff happens. Go to events, network. Like, it's a process. It's a marathon, not a sprint. Just trust the process. Be patient. I'll drop one name, Adam Pearce. He is one. I will look at his social media daily. And one thing, kind of his mantra is work hard, treat people fairly, earn respect. And that's it. That's the secret. I mean, it sounds simple. You're like, you got to be kidding me. Like, no, it's really, I used to be a negative dude. I'm kind of going off on a tangent. I apologize. But I used to be a negative dude, right? Oh, man, screw that trainer or that coach. They don't know what they're doing. Screw that student for not wanting to come learn from me. They don't know what they're missing. Screw that promotion for not using me because their commentary sucks or their production sucks or I can make their promotion better. Like, old man yelling at clouds, right? And I had a little bit of success. But like I said, about 2014, 2015, I met Brutal Bob. We had that conversation, and he kind of changed my view on it. And I leaned more towards the positive side of it, being supportive of others, helping people without anything in expectation as a return, and just being a good brother, right? As they like to say. And I've seen more success since I made that switch than the previous 15 years before that. And so it really is. I've had more success in the last, so what would that be, 8, 9, going on 9 years, following kind of those 3 rules and just being a good, upstanding, supportive kind of person than I did, having that egotistical my way or the highway. Like, if you're not doing what I think is best, then you're wrong kind of mentality. And so that's a part of the process too. You can get bitter really quick. Don't. Stay positive. Don't take stuff personally. And all of that kind of just rolls into that same thing. Just trust the process.
Kind of personal, but I love asking the veterans who have been in the business for a very long time.
Do it. What you got?
Do you consider yourself successful?
So I consider myself more successful than some, but not to what my idea of success is, because there's a certain level that I want to get to and that I know that I can contribute to, and I haven't quite gotten there yet. Your goals and your dreams sometimes have to shift and change, and mine definitely did, right? Because it used to want it active in ring, and now it's kind of shifted a little bit more, behind the scenes, commentary, producing, agenting, coaching, whatever the case may be. But I still believe that I provide value there. And I've got friends and acquaintances that are in, let's just say, the top 6 promotions in this country, and several below that as well, that it's just kind of one of those right place, right time kind of things. So I have, let's say that I am the most successful that I've been yet. How about that? I know that's a cheeky answer, but that's probably the best one.
Well, because, and I know for a lot of people who watch, or for even the independent wrestling community, the toxic side will say well, you haven't made it to the big 2.
Right.
And so when I go and we talk to these people, and when I first met my coach, I even got to hear him give the stories I haven't made it yet. And to me, what made us so close is I'm like, yeah, but you've gotten to do this, and this. I've met wrestlers who haven't gotten to do a quarter of that, and you've gotten to do that. And you've gotten to be here and here and here. And it made him go well, maybe I need a relook. Still have the passion, but you guys have gotten to do amazing and wonderful things. Okay, you're not at Mania, but you're at WrestleCade. Yeah. And let's face it, that's still a huge event, and that's still something that's unique.
Well, what was that WWE show, the ride along or whatever, where they would put a camera in the vehicle as they rode from one event to the other? Daniel Bryan, even after winning the championship 3 times, still didn't consider himself successful. So, everybody's different, but yeah. And I also hear the negative side of that too, where you had mentioned about how, talking about your coach. I've had students tell me that where they get to a point where they're frustrated. Maybe they think I'm holding them back, or I'm not telling them the truth, or I'm hiding some deep, dark secret to success or something. I don't know. And that'll come up and be like, what business do you have teaching people how to get somewhere you've never been? And I was like, you have a point. I have not been where you just said, but there are people currently working at that company who will agree with me and will tell you to listen to me. Right. So it's kind of one of those. So again, I'll drop this name because he said I can. A good friend of mine in wrestling, Glacier, Ray Lloyd. Love that dude. He says, and I said, dude, I'm stealing that. And he said, please do. He said, I don't drop names on you to impress you. I drop names to impress on you the validity of the advice that I'm giving. Right? Like, if you're not going to trust me, trust this person. If you don't trust that person, I don't know what to tell you. Right? And so that's what I do. I'm like, I learned this lesson from this person. Right? Yeah. So you calling them a liar? So I have heard that, and like a lot of questions that get asked in pro wrestling, I've kind of gotten to the point where I formulated like those default answers, like boom, I don't skip a beat. I used to get so mad when people would bring up the F word, and I'm like, if your life is so sad that you don't have something as awesome in pro wrestling in it, I'm sorry. And then they're like, what the heck, man? And I just kind of walk off. Like, I don't get upset at it anymore. It's like, if you don't realize how awesome it is, then sorry. But, because you get those questions a lot. And some of those questions I've had where it was like, that's a good question. And I don't have an answer. So I need to learn it. I need to figure it out, because that's how you get better. Right. Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, I could look at some coaches and trainers that were like, oh, I want to be like Coach Josh. And then there are some coaches and trainers that in my mind are a step or two above me, but they're more in the realm of like mutual acquaintances, I would think, because, we'll text each other. And, I posted a reel about a drill the other day, and, this one coach hit me up and was like, oh man, I love that drill too. And one thing that I'll do is if they get bored with it, I'll add this. And I'm like, oh dude, I add this. And so we're stealing that. Like, we said it at the same time. So, yeah, there's definitely higher levels that I'd like to get to. And as I always say, keep driving and striving, right? The day you stop learning is the day you die. And I'm not done living. So I'm going to keep striving for bigger and better, man.
So I like how you said, like, I don't drop these names to impress you. It's the same way when I sent you our guest list. It wasn't like, oh, we've had these people. It's
right.
This man will hopefully realize we're not going to waste an hour of his life.
It's not Tom and John down from yonder at the barn, talking about your sheet. No, it's like actually people that be like, oh, I know that person. Oh, I know that person. So yeah. So, and it was funny. You sent me that list and I looked at it, and there were several people on there that like I legitimately am friends with, not just, hey, I know them through wrestling. And so I was like, okay, so if they did this podcast, all right, I'm not going to be bored to death. I'm not going to have my name drugged through the dirt. Okay, it's a good one. I was like, yeah, man, let's do it.
Especially because you have all those toys. Like, I could never drag your name through the dirt. You have a giant collection, man.
Man, and it runs the gamut, man. Like, if I go somewhere and I see something cool that you don't see everywhere, like I've got some John Cena's, right? Like, there's 50 million versions of John Cena. Like, I got like the really, I don't know if you can see it, the blue AEW Sting.
Yeah.
Sure.
Oh, yeah.
Limited edition deal or whatever. The pops that are a little harder to find, like the Alexa Bliss variant or whatever. So like stuff like that. And then I have you can't see it, it's out of range. It's a luchador bottle opener that I got as a random Christmas gift. Somebody left on my front porch one Christmas, and I didn't leave a name with it. I was like, I put it on Facebook. I was like, whoever sent this, thanks, So just like random stuff like that. So it's one of those you can definitely spend some time going through. And then I got let me see that. That's old school Crockett era 4 Horsemen. Like it's Flair, Tully, Arn, and Barry on it. Like old school 4 Horsemen. Yeah.
This is my newest little pride from '83. I was gifted this recently, and this is my
Is
newest.
That one of the
little
AWA styles?
Yep, that's one of the AWA styles.
See, and like my oldest item is when they first put them out, my uncle had bought it. It's the NWO Hulk Hogan Battle Buddy.
Oh,
like yeah.
I still can't find my Hulkamania one because
we need to Stone Cold somewhere.
We need to like link them up and just have them in the pod with
us. One I've got a Rey Mysterio and then a Stone Cold hiding out behind. Yeah, it's just random stuff. I mean, it's not like it's you're a mark for buying someone else's action figure, and I'm like, no, I actually like know that person. And then it's funny because I'll be in an event, Adam, with them, and I'm like, man, I got your action figure and I didn't bring it with me. Like, I need to get you to sign that one. Oh yeah, we'll do it. Used to be the same way with taking pictures back in the day. Like, I've gotten to the point where screw that stigma. Like, you're a friend of mine. Take a picture with me, And not all of them see the light of day. Like, I've got some that are still on the camera roll that, maybe one day so it's the question. I don't want to, I'm not trying to toot my horn, but it's not like I see it all the time. You see somebody on WWE, AEW, whatever, they win a title. And then you see all these like indie guys posting pictures with that person saying, hey, congratulations on winning, da-da-da. And it's like, dude, you're such a clout chaser. You know what I'm saying? Like you're only posting that to be like, hey, I know that person. So I don't know. Maybe I'll keep them private for me, but also at the same time, you always got to worry about people's opinions. But those people's opinions don't pay my bills. So,
Yep.
I love that. I love that. So as we begin to wind down, unfortunately, like I said, we talk about wrestling, but we didn't really get into your career too much.
All good. Man, I don't know if you can tell. I can talk about anything. Exactly. I was in the Marine Corps for 8 years, and they wanted to send me to recruiter school because I could talk. And one of the tests was you're in this room and there's this table with just random crap on it. And they're like, you have to pick one of these items and talk about it for 90 seconds. And I went, where's the test? And they were like, what? I was like, I can talk about all of these things for 90 seconds. Like, dude, come on. They were like, maybe we don't send you to recruiting school. I didn't want to anyway. I went and did some other stuff, but yeah, I've always been able to just talk, and it drives my wife insane because we'll be in an event and she'd be like, can we go? And I was like, yeah, let me just tell everybody goodbye. Then insert the SpongeBob 1 hour later.
Yep.
Sorry. But hey, it pays me sometimes. So
yeah. So last question, what did you do in Ring of Honor? Because people who don't know who you are may not know what you did.
So yeah, I get a lot of questions about that. And a lot of people are like, oh, he's so full of, or he didn't really do that, or he's making it out to be something more than it is. I always tell people, like, my time at Ring of Honor is an example of, like, how you should be doing everywhere for every promotion, because I always tell people, like, make yourself valuable. And so I was going through a rough personal time. I was having to close down my school that I had at the time. I was going through a divorce and wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. And I had Brutal Bob in for a seminar, and he pulled me to the side and he was like, look, Ring of Honor could use you. Make yourself available, make yourself valuable, and let's see what happens. Okay. So I showed up to, and I'd already done ring crew for them before. They had come through Charlotte for their Death Before Dishonor. That was the one where Steve Corino and BJ Whitmer had their fight without honor. I got to be like ringside for that, which was kind of cool. And got to learn kind of the production side and meet some of the talent and everything. Became real good friends with Cheeseburger during that time. And so I hit Burger up and was like, hey, this is what Bob said. And Burger said, heck yeah, be here at this place at this time. And so I was like, okay. And so I showed up. They were in Pittsburgh, and I showed up and I did crew, and I helped them with some backstage segments, helped tear down. And then the next night they were in Columbus, Ohio. So I drove the 3 hours there, did it again, and then drove the 6 hours back home. And then the next month, I can't remember where they were in March, I went and did that too. And it kind of got to the point where a couple of the guys like Berger, Rhett Titus, Bird, Will Ferrara, and a couple of the guys kind of knew, okay, Josh knows what he's doing. He's dependable. So if we need something done, we can ask him to do it. And it's not like you're asking somebody you've never met before. And so I started gaining a little bit more of a reputation of being able to do stuff. And then it was Supercard of Honor. It was the one down in Orlando where the main event was the Bucks versus the Hardys in ladder war. And they didn't have anybody to ring the bell. And Berger looked at me and he was like, Coach, you always bring dress clothes. You want to ring the bell tonight? And I was like, sure. And so I sat ringside, and one of the dark matches, Paul Turner asked for the bell. And apparently they've had some pretty bad bell ringers in the past. And so I rang it really well. And he went, good job. And it was kind of my job from then on. Like every time I was there, Berger would look at me and he'd go, bell. And I'd say, sure. And he'd say, and that was it. And so I was the ringside timekeeper for almost 2 years, but I still helped set up the ring. I helped tear it down. A lot of times when Dalton Castle was making a pay-per-view entrance, he'd be like, hey, I need boys. And so I would go and he would tell me how many he needed, and I would get them straight, and I'd send them to them, and they'd walk through their entrance and all that stuff. I got to the point where I was helping Paul Turner do like when they would do the meet and greets and be like, okay, here's where this person is, here's where this person is. At this time, we need to get them and escort them to the meet and greet. And so I started to get a little bit of a familiarity and camaraderie with some of the talents there because they knew me and Paul are taking them to their meet and greets and everything. And so we talk and BS and stuff. And so you start to kind of build that. And so, I'd been there about a year, and we were at the next Supercard of Honor. This was the one in New Orleans, where the main event was Marty Scurll versus Dalton Castle. But the one that everybody was wanting to see was the leader of the Bullet Club, right? Kenny Omega versus Cody Rhodes. So it was that Supercard of Honor, and it was my responsibility to make sure that the weapons were where everybody wanted it, right? And there were another story. There were some snafus with a table and some powder and all that other stuff or whatever. And I don't want to say heat, but it was a little bit like, that could have gone a little bit better. And then, I got to do a couple of the camps, help them out with paperwork and logistics and telling people where to go and doing all that stuff. And for all of that, Berger was like, hey, man, Delirious said you can try out without having to pay the fee, because you've done so much for us. So I got to, basically kind of try out for them for free, which could have gone better, but, it is what it is. And after I'd been there for about 2 years, just kind of got the vein that, I hit a ceiling, probably wasn't going to do much more. And some new groups were coming in. They moved the dojo down to Baltimore and some other changes that happened. And so I was like, okay, it's a good time for me to kind of, step away. And so I still keep in contact with all the people, and you'll still see the videos and the pictures and stuff floating around on TV, because it'd be funny. Like, I can't remember, like it would come on Sunday night at 8 or whatever the time was. And my phone would start dinging and I'm like, crap. And I'd look and people would take pictures of their TV and they'd be like, what's Josh doing on my TV? And whatever, because I was sitting there ringside. But it was cool. It was a nice little experience. I learned a lot about crew, how they put their truck together and stuff that I was able to use for WrestleCade and AML. I learned a lot about production and backstage and, how the higher level entities do it. And I've kind of parlayed that into some possible prospects coming up here in the next little bit. I can't go into too much detail, but it was definitely fun. It was good. There's a lot of people that have misconceptions, I guess, about it. But I always tell people, like, it's a prime example of you provide value. And like I used to tell people before that happened, whatever job the promotion gives you, do it to the best of your ability. If you get asked to be the bell ringer, be the best little bell ringer that you can be. And then like a couple of years later, here I am literally being the bell ringer. And it was because I did this crappy job and did a pretty good job. And they were like, let's give him this less crappy job and eventually kind of worked my way up. And so I said, that's what you got to do to promotions. Make yourself valuable, help set up the ring, tear down the ring. Like, I am one of the first people at an AML event. The only person that beats me there is George South. And that's because he's camped out there. That's the running joke. And I'm one of the last people to leave. And when you look at everybody that's involved, like 3 of the people out of the top 5 that probably shouldn't be doing manual labor do. And it's like, that should be a clue to you. You're trying to work for them and you're not willing to do what they do. Take it or leave it. Some people like that advice and some people don't. But that was it. So you're looking at about all of 2017, all of 2018, and a little into 19. If they were pretty much east of the Mississippi, I was there because I had to do my own travel, right? They weren't flying me, they weren't putting me up in hotels. So it had to be within driving distance. So like when they did Texas and the Northwest and all that stuff, I didn't do it. But, if it was within 6 to 8 hours, dude, I was there. And I would try to combine it with other things. Like I went down there for a Florida loop. And while I was down there, I was able to hit about 3 or 4 different schools. While I was down there, that's where I ran into and kind of befriended Matt Seidel. So it's just one of those, like you get out there, you make friends, you make network connections, and that you just got to put yourself out there. Slept in my car, ate sheets quite a bit, like didn't get a lot of sleep, but the upside was definitely worth it to me. And some people would look at it and say it's not to them. Is what it is.
Yes,
that's crazy. Everything you just said, and even in the entirety of this entire episode, we have done that, and we're continuing to try and reach to do that. So like, our first indie event that me and him ever attended, we went, and it was just for just to help out. You can
correction. First indie event you attended, I've helped at a few shows.
Yeah.
He's got to pull rank a bit on you there.
Yeah.
I am a good chair folder. I will fight for that one.
It's insane because like the moment we get there, it's like, hey, you have a camera, which is me. I'm like, yeah. So all of a sudden, I'm ringside cameraman for half the matches while he's up there running the entrance music, and we were just like.
I was like, okay, all right.
Yeah.
I have no idea how to run this. I don't know your software, but I'm going to figure it out in
Yep. And
2 minutes.
It was insane. And then even like going back to like, hey, like just go up to the main event and even talk to him. We went up to the main event and talked to him, and we had him on the podcast later down the line. So everything you said, like fun in hindsight, we've already kind of like doing that. So it's crazy.
Yep. Yeah. And when you're there to help and you're making yourself valuable when those opportunities arise, like literally that's how I got my opportunity to initially do commentary for AML, is that I started being the trainer. George South had to step away, had some logistic issues, and I was able to step in. And all I was at the time was the trainer. And a part of me looking at training the next generation, you got to learn how to put a ring up. You got to learn how to tear that bad boy down. And you might as well learn how the backstage works until you're actually on stage. And so, I ran crew. So I'm making myself valuable. I'm there. And Tracy comes up to me and is like, hey, man, one of the guys that we had scheduled to do commentary, had to cancel. And I know you always come prepared. You got your suit. You want to do commentary tonight? And I said, yes, sir. And I sat down and I did commentary, and that guy was back at the next show. And so it was a one shot for me at the time. And then 3 months later, it was like, we want you to be one of our, our regular commentators. And I did it for about 5 years before, and had 5 different commentary partners in that time. And then finally it was like, hey, we want to change things up. We appreciate everything you've done. You do really good at that job, but you have to evolve and move and refresh and everything. And I was like, no offense taken. I'll still provide value. And a couple of times since then, the guy that was booked couldn't make it, and I had to jump in. And so it's one of those things. You're there, you're available, you make yourself valuable, prove that you can do things. Like they're more willing to kind of, hey, this kind of important spot. You interested? Oh, you mean like last weekend where I get to interview Kurt Angle in the middle of the ring on camera? Sure, you got it, boss. Or I got to interview Lex Luger to open a interview.
That's
sure
great.
Thing, dude. Oh, you want me to set up Ronnie Garvin punching our heel champion? You got it, boss. It's just you're there. You make yourself valuable. They know you can accomplish that task, and it's just right place, right time.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
This is all the knowledge. This is awesome. I love this. Oh my God.
Yeah.
All right. So we don't want to take up too much of your time. We definitely are going to have to stay in contact. We will have to have a part 2. Where can everybody find you?
Super easy. I tried to make it as easy as possible. Josh Gerry, and it's spelled right there, Gerry. I'm on Facebook, I'm on Twitter, and I'm on Instagram, which, by the way, if you're in professional wrestling and you're not on at least those 3, then you're doing it wrong. But you can also find me on TikTok, LinkedIn. I think I still have a Snapchat, but it's all search Josh Gerry. If I don't immediately come up, which I usually do because of algorithm and SEO and all that good stuff. But, follow, friend, like, share, comment, ring the bell, all those good things, right? Oh, and on YouTube as well, Josh Gerry, Coach Josh Gerry. If you can't find it with just the first and last name, you'll probably find me. Quite a few people, like you said, share my stuff. So if you're interested in learning more, it's out there. I've got stuff that goes back years upon years upon years. And same thing, if you've got specific questions, I encourage people, DM, text if you got the number, all that stuff. I try to respond within 24 hours. I found the best way to help pro wrestling is to help the people in it. And so, I'm definitely down to help, if somebody's got a question, as long as you're not being a goof, I'll answer the questions.
All righty. Ladies and gentlemen, that was our episode here at Downtime in the Ring. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, and we will see you in the next video.